Welcome back, friends. Today we're going to introduce the most terrifying subject in woodworking. No, I don't mean trees falling on you. I don't mean slivers in your hand that go all the way to your elbow. I mean sharpening tools. Those two words, sharpening tools, strike fear into the heart of many woodworkers. Visions of elaborate setups, complicated geometry, nightmares about getting it just right. I'm here to banish all that. Just throw it away. We're going to go back to basics. What is sharpening? How do different tools need to be sharpened? And the first thing we're going to do is just think about the tools for a second. Tools come in all different shapes and sizes. They do different jobs. A plane, cutting iron, does one thing. Functions one way. It cuts shavings off a board when you push it along. We've used planes lots. You have planes. I hope you do. I hope you get more. But we'll look at how to sharpen those. What about some of the other tools you may need? Perhaps something as simple as a pocket knife. Pocket knife is a wonderful tool. But you don't sharpen a pocket knife the same way you sharpen a plane iron. Or a chisel. Chisels aren't much use if they're not sharp. But again, chisels aren't all the same. A bench chisel, straight, flat. A carving chisel, curved, bent. Can't sharpen them the same way. And what about the tools for roughing out a piece of wood? Hatchet. A side hatchet. Almost flat on one side, heavily beveled on the other. The handle, crooked. Well, that tool will have to be sharpened differently than all of those. And then what if you're interested in doing the fine things in woodworking? Lovely moldings. Well, then you need a molding plane. But look at the cutter in a molding plane. Curves, angles. You're not going to sharpen that the same way you sharpen the iron in this kind of plane. And then there's a totally other class of tools that look like pretty much nothing but a piece of steel, and yet they've got a finely tuned hooked edge to raise a shaving. Just a scraper, card scraper. That's an entirely different way of sharpening. Because the tool works differently, it does a different job. You know, when you get into woodworking, you're going to have tools of all different sorts. You're going to need to sharpen various tools, various types of tools, sizes of tools. So much will depend on the work you're doing. But you got to be able to have a confidence in sharpening. To be able to simply take the tool when it needs it, go and do what you've got to do and get back to work. That's what you need to do. Now right off the bat, I'm going to tell you my philosophy of sharpening, such as it is that sharpness is not a function of the tool. That is, it's not something the tool is. Sharpness is determined by how the tool works. It's the work that tells you if a tool is dull or sharp. It's no angle, it's no polishing technique. It's entirely a question of how it works. Now, how do we sharpen? Well, sharpening is basically abrading steel. That is, removing steel by rubbing it off against something that's hard, that's abrasive, that has particles in it harder than the steel. So that as you rub the steel across it, it wears away the steel, removing the dull portions and leaving an edge that's sharper. Mostly we use sharpening stones of various sorts. Now, there's endless numbers of sharpening stones. I only have what I have. I won't talk much about what I do not have or no longer use. I simply have a series of stones. Some of them are hardware store combination stones made for oil. Very inexpensive. The ones I have I actually didn't buy. I picked them up in junk shops and that sort of thing. Mostly they were in really bad shape. I cleaned them up, but they're useful. Other stones are rather expensive. An Arkansas stone, a soft stone, a hard stone, flat stones, slip stones, made for sharpening, gouges, molding planes, that sort of thing. And other stones, you might not see them in the store at all. Here's one of my favorite, very fine honing stones. It's actually a piece of slate. I don't know where it came from. I found it as it was. It was once a much larger stone. Someone cut it off. It leaves a beautiful edge that cuts well. But we'll get into some of that stuff. First, we're going to start with the simplest thing. You know, any stone may work for you. This is the stone I use for sharpening my pocket knife. It's simply a piece of slate found along the banks of a stream. It fell out of a cliff, who knows when. Pour a little water on it. And I'm sharpening my knife. So while I sharpen my knife, you go and relax. And don't worry about the technical parts of sharpening. We'll get there. But the main thing is, we're going to get there without losing our minds. We'll talk to you later.